Welcome to Genius Stone Dialogs, conversations about unleashing wisdom, wealth, and well-being worldwide. Alan Hutner here, your host. Sitting across from me, founder and CEO of Genius Stone Partners, Paul David Walker. Welcome.
Glad to be here. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Now, Paul was part of building the first leadership firm to align strategy, structure, and culture, and has been a business leadership advisor to CEOs of Fortune 500 and mid-sized companies for 25 years.
Yeah.
He's also the author of a number of books, one of them being, most importantly, Unleashing Genius, Leading Yourself, Teams, and Corporations, as well as being a poet.
Yeah.
But someday we'll get your poetry on here.
That'd be fun.
Let's get into our conversation.
All right.
All right. You said in your book, Unleashing Genius, that everyone has access to genius. The question for you is, how do you and the Genius Stone leaders help your clients unleash their genius? How do you discover and manifest genius? How does somebody out there tuning into our dialogues unleash their genius?
All right. I'm going to tell a story. It's kind of how I discovered what I was actually doing.
Uh-huh.
At first, I was doing this and not realizing that I was doing it. And then this lady who I met was talking about her work. Now, she's an assistant at a facility in Canada that works with emotionally disturbed children. And she's not a psychologist, but she works there, and occasionally the psychologists won't be in. They'll be late. They'll go to lunch. They'll ask her to watch the kids for an afternoon. And people were always amazed with her, because what she would do is sit down with the kids, and in about 5 minutes, the kids stopped bouncing off the walls. Within 5 minutes, these emotionally disturbed kids would be sitting in a circle, and she'd lead them in some kind of game. Naturally, the psychologists were going, well, what are you doing? They wanted to know her secret. And I just happened to be with her when one of these guys asked her this question. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, I know that everyone has a deep innate health within them. I know that. And when I work with the kids, I can see behind their troubled personality this health, this genius, if you will. I can see it. And so as their personality asks me crazy questions, I ignore it. All I do is address their health, address the deeper part of themselves.
So that's a great story. I guess the question related to that, is there a correlation between health and genius? How do they relate to each other? And how is that relevant to your work with leaders and, upper executive and management people?
Well, health, or what she calls innate health, meaning it's always there. It's natural, it's a default setting, leads to genius, right? Now, what she did and was doing with the children is she was acknowledging the genius, the innate health within the child. And before long, she would only address their health and their genius. And over time, the kids, when they saw her, knew that she saw them and only addressed her from their health, from their genius.
Yeah. Now, do you do this? I mean, was that something that you learned from her that you do when you sit with a CEO or a management team? From my experience in my corporate days, that playing calmly together in business doesn't necessarily seem like it would get the desired results. This calmness, this, tuning in. It's a little different approach that you're doing.
Well, business is more complicated than a mental health facility.
Does calmness create this in the business environment?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. But what I want to say is that disturbance that comes from the personality of a disturbed child or personality of a CEO or a team creates interference with your ability to see what's really going on around you. So your personality, you get wrapped up in your personality or your thoughts, and you kind of slip out of the zone like an athlete. if you're in the zone trying to make a shot and you go, oh, geez, I hope I make a shot. It's an important shot. Boom, you miss it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be present. When executives are present, they see the reality of their business as opposed to their thoughts and notions about the business, and results go up. Just like in the clinic, the kids are playing together.
Yeah.
And not to compare executive teams to, a clinic of mentally ill people, but
No,
it works.
I was gonna look at the folks out there and saying this is not what we're doing. Although to be honest with ourselves, we all have personality issues. The things that we've learned, as children from somewhat dysfunctional parents, or in the lineage of our relatives in the past, and once we gather ourselves behind the personality, I know you talk about that later on about witnessing and observing, but once you have that ability to see where the personality is coming into play,
sure,
that changes the name of the game for you, your team, anybody you're with.
Yeah. You see the reality of what's in front of you, and you just deal with it, respond to it, just like an athlete would in the zone.
Yeah, I like what you said here in the notes that you gave to me down at the bottom. The static and confusion of the thoughts and beliefs that come from the personalities and egos cleared, and they began to see the reality of their business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that simple, and people always say, oh, geez, Paul, how do you do this? And I'm not really doing anything except talking to their wisdom, addressing their wisdom, seeing their genius, and their genius does the work.
Yeah. Just in that context, and maybe this is important, correct me if I'm, heading down the wrong path with this, that the genius doesn't have anything to do with the personality.
Nothing.
We identify with that. We think that's who we are, but the genius is something deeper, wiser, more powerful, and present under the personality. Personality, the persona was built around the genius that may even shut it down, choke it off.
Yeah, it does shut it down. It's just a convenience to live in society. Mm-hmm. But if you want to do something great, you've got to go to another level of understanding. And that's what genius is.
Okay. And the next time on Genius Stone Dialogues, we are going to go to a deeper level of understanding on our world and business in existential crisis.
Great.
Tune in.